Wherever there are shadows, there are people ready to kick at the darkness until it bleeds daylight. This is Bleeding Daylight with your host, Rodney Olson.
Welcome to Bleeding Daylight. Thanks for being here. A full library of episodes is waiting for you at bleedingdaylight.net. You'll also find all our social media links there. Please follow Bleeding Daylight on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok and YouTube. Have we become too risk-averse in our faith? Do we prefer to avoid taking courageous steps? Does that mean that we're not living fully the lives that we are designed to live? My guest today embraces every moment as he lives a bold, intentional life. A life that is prepared to pour itself out for others. I have a guest today whose life story sounds a bit more like a movie script. David Small grew up in small-town Canada, dreaming of coaching ice hockey, eventually working as Director of Hockey Operations for Team Canada West and scouting for the Los Angeles Kings. After that, he ended up spending over a decade in Burma, working with the Free Burma Rangers, in the middle of one of the world's most forgotten wars. He's walked through minefields, been bombed, been mortared, and come out the other side with some hard-won wisdom about not letting comfort or fear ruin your life. He's written a best-selling book about it, and now he runs the Jungle Discipleship School, training young leaders in Burma. David, welcome to Bleeding Daylight.
Rodney, thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be here and have a conversation with you.
Your book, Nameless Faceless People, 10 Years with the Free Burma Rangers, is a compelling read. I suppose before we talk about what we can find on those pages, it'd be helpful to look at the backdrop to it all. We're talking about a country with the world's longest-running civil war, millions displaced, and ongoing conflict and uncertainty. Where do you even begin to serve people in such circumstances?
Yeah, good question. The need is never ending there. I'm currently home in Canada doing a fundraising tour and trying to raise money for the ministry. I kind of wrestle with this question because there's never enough. If I think I have an operating budget covered, there's like something else, and you turn the corner and somebody has no food and no rice and they're asking for help or medicine and these kind of things. So yeah, it's hard. And so I've went over there to volunteer for 6 months with the Free Burma Rangers. 6 months turned into a decade. I think there's something in the masculine soul that craves adventure. Adventure may lead you there, but you don't want to do adventure tourism in a war zone. People do that. It's a thing, but that's how you end up dead. And so you have to be there because God has placed you there. And what really makes you stay is love. And when you fall in love with the people that you're serving, then the Burma Army is no longer bombing their home. They're bombing your home. They're bombing your family's home, your aunt, your uncles, your cousins, your little brothers, your little sisters. And when they have to flee, it's not an abstract thing of there is some foreigner that has to flee and I'm here to help. It becomes personal because you actually love those people.
Tell me the distinction between the names of that country, because a lot of people know it as Myanmar, and of course we're talking about Burma here. Tell me about the difference between those two names, and what does it mean to the people actually on the ground there?
The easiest way I can explain it is in the late 90s, Nike was in a lot of trouble because of sweatshops, and their shoes were being manufactured in sweatshops, and they had a bad rep, basically. Nike basically took the swoosh off of their shoes, and instead they rebranded with Air Jordans and Tiger Woods brand. They made up all these different brands with still the exact same shoe, but they've just changed the logo. And that's the easiest way I can explain that that's what happened in Burma. Burma and the capital used to be Yangon, and the dictators knew, hey, there's a bad rap. We have a bad image internationally. And so let's kind of do a head fake here. So they moved the capital to Naypyidaw. Most people have never even heard of Naypyidaw, but that's the capital of Burma. And Myanmar, they changed the name to Myanmar. I still refer to it as Burma. And most of the people that I work with would say, I am so-and-so. I am from this ethnic group from Burma. So they always identify their name, their ethnicity, and then Burma as last. Very few of them say, I'm from Myanmar.
Back in 2014, a fearful younger man decided to give 6 months to the Free Burma Rangers. You've already, I guess, hinted at the answer, and that is you've fallen in love with the people. But how does that 6-month commitment turn into a decade of serving people in that country?
When we give our lives to God, he doesn't just leave us where he found us. He grows us up. He's in this process of fathering us and growing us up. I made a prayer that I would pray regularly, and I would just pray, Father, would you father me? And part of being fathered is being initiated. God would bring me and had this path laid out for me. And I thought, okay, I'll go and work for 6 months and then I'll go back and I'll get a real job. But God is like, no. You asked me to father you, and that's not the path I have for you. This is the path I have for you. So the decade that I spent in Burma and the stuff that I wrote about in the book, it's all initiation. This is all just initiation for what God had for me now running the Jungle Discipleship School. And I had to go through all of these things and all these experiences and learn it, and was fathered through these things. I consider the book like my stories of initiation, leading me to become the kind of man who can run a program like the Jungle Discipleship School.
Free Burma Rangers is an interesting name, and it sounds like some sort of radical resistance group. So help us understand a bit more. What is the Free Burma Rangers all about?
Okay, so the Free Burma Rangers was founded by David Eubank, and David Eubank grew up as a missionary kid in Thailand. He then went and joined the U.S. Army, and he was an Army Ranger, part of the Army Special Forces. When he felt a call from God to go back and serve people in Burma and help with the conflict in Burma and go and serve as a missionary there, he formed this little organization, and he said, okay, we want freedom. We're operating in Burma. He loved the Rangers that he was a part of in the army. And so he just said, okay, let's be the Free Burma Rangers. They primarily do war relief. Where there's a war, there are people that are stuck in that war. And back here is the NGOs, the UN, these groups that are kind of receiving people. And then here's the front line. But between the front line and those groups is this no man's land where nobody's working. And that's the space that the Free Burma Rangers operate in, helping rescue people and get them out of the war zone and then hand them off to the bigger NGOs and aid organizations. And their mission is to bring help, hope, and love into conflict zones.
I know that for a lot of NGOs, it's not about a photo opportunity, but they do want to report back to the people that are supporting so that they know that the food or the money that they send is being turned into food and getting to the people. But you do tell a story in the book of distributing food that had a different stamp on it, and it wasn't about the photo op. I guess that speaks to the nature of the sort of organization. Tell me a bit more about that.
Yeah, we were in Bangladesh doing a food distribution, and we were totally illegal and drove our food directly into the compound of the army that was trying to shut us down and find us. And we said, we're here to do a food distribution. And they ended up giving us these other food bags and said, you can hand these ones out, but they don't have your logo on it. And we said, oh yeah, that's fine. We don't care about logos. It blew them away. They were like, what? You don't care about logos? Like all the other NGOs, they have their logos and they want the photo. And for us, it's about going to love people. Yeah, okay, photos are important and documenting, and people sometimes ask, hey, if I give this money, can you send me some photos? And totally fine and totally understandable. But our ultimate goal is we want to go and get to know the people and love the people. The mission of the Free Burma Ranger is executed by helping the people and getting the news out. Helping the people is only limited by our creativity. It could be right there on the front lines, helping rescue soldiers or civilians caught in the front line. It could be bringing medicine to a malaria outbreak. It could be food distributions. Getting the news out involves talking to people, getting to hear their stories, and shining a light on what's actually happening in Burma, what the Burma Army is doing there, because there's very little in the news about it. It's kind of like you said in the intro, a forgotten war.
Again, you've mentioned the sort of work that is going on of getting food to those who most need it, and there's a difference between NGOs and what's happening on the front line and all of that. And I guess that begs the question about the difference between relief and development, where relief is there is a need that we need to fill right now. We need to get in. These people don't have any food. And then that long-term development. Was there a bit of a mix in those areas with Free Burma Rangers?
That's a great question, and it came up over and over again in the 10 years that I worked with FBR. Dave Eubank, he's very mission-focused. As you develop a ministry or a mission, you can get mission creep, like you start to drift into different things. Dave would say, hey, there are good Christian things that we are not called to do. We are not called to develop clinics. We're called to train medics who can go and give immediate relief. For me, it was really beautiful to watch a leader like Dave who said, hey, what you want to do is good and God is going to bless you in that, but it's not what we are going to do. And it's okay to have that separation and to have that focus. FBR is very much a relief organization. They do have a little bit of development stuff going on. They run the Jungle School of Medicine where they train medics and they operate a clinic at their headquarters. But for the most part, it's like 99% what they do is relief work, immediate needs, and then solving those. Dave would refer to themselves as the volunteer fire department. You get a call, everybody grabs their gear, you go and you do your best. And when you're done, you come home or you go to the next fire.
I don't want to lead you on too much of a tangent, but how important is that for us in our everyday life to be certain of what God has called us to do as opposed to maybe the person sitting next to us in the pew at church?
Yeah, we have this highway in front of us and there's this mission that God has created us for. And there's no person on the entire earth and all the history of the earth that has gone through the same things that you have, that has been created the same way you have, raised the same way, and you are exactly unique the way that God has designed you for a kingdom purpose. Part of our 20s and the journey of our 20s and into our 30s is trying to discover that. What am I passionate about? What are my giftings? What are the things that make me come alive? And how can I use these things to serve the kingdom? I love the name of your show, Bleeding Daylight, because it's like, yeah, okay, we have to go and advance the kingdom of God. And so I will use my giftings and passions to go and do those things. And on one side of the highway, on one side of the road, there's a swamp of sin and bad things and addictions. And if I get into that, I'm going to get bogged down. And on the other side of the highway is like good Christian stuff I'm not called to do. It'll also bog me down. And then there's the lane that God has called me to, the things that I'm created to do, that I'm gifted to do. And it's green lights all the way. So let's go.
Tell me about your shift to the Jungle Discipleship School and what that's all about.
Yeah, Free Burma Rangers is like the volunteer fire department, and I love that. I did it for a decade, and I absolutely adore that work. But my heart and my gifting is in, if we use this analogy, your house just burned down. I want to sit in the ashes with you and mourn, and then I want to help you rebuild or make a plan to help you rebuild. What I was seeing in Burma, and my primary role was as a field operator. So I was mainly in the field training teams to go and help their own people. And in Burma, after 2021, there was a coup and the war ramped up. The war in Burma is as violent as it's ever been. Like since World War II, the level of fighting in Burma is at that stage today. My friends, my little brothers, my people that I love, they fight bravely and they die quickly. And if they don't know Jesus, if they don't have that experience of having a relationship with Jesus, that just breaks my heart. I grew up in a bit of a stuffy conservative Baptist church in a small town, very focused on rules, and I'm not a good rule follower. And so it was hard for me. But what really changed my life is when I got to know a real living Jesus, got to know the personality of Jesus, and that, oh man, I can be in a relationship with Jesus. And it's not all about just following rules, that he absolutely adores me. And that changed my life. It changed my heart when I knew the love of God for me. And I want my students at the Jungle Discipleship School to experience that. I had to step away from FBR. I love FBR. They're still my community and my best friends over there. But I felt God saying, you need to build a place where you can call some of these people away from the war, where they can experience what you've experienced.
That must be such a different space for those people to be in when they're in the midst of conflict the whole time. And certainly even calling them away, as you put it, is not calling them completely away from the conflict, because that's all still around them. Mm-hmm. But what have been some of the responses of some of those people that you've had the time to sit with and to talk with and disciple?
I often say that I am much more like Mr. Bean than I am James Bond, especially when I'm bumbling my way through a war zone or bumbling my way through being a missionary. When I started the Jungle Discipleship School, I had no idea what I was doing. I felt called by God to go and do this. And so I said, okay, God, I'm going to follow you. I had this ragtag group of misfit toys who said, hey, Dave, you're going to do that. I'm going to follow and go with you. And then I had these soldiers say, hey, I want to come. And they came with a ton of trauma, a ton of grief, a ton of addictions. They didn't know how to deal with any of it. And so all they did was drink. And I'm trying to teach the Bible. And it was all these things I never prepared for. They weren't in my wheelhouse when I thought about doing this program. And so in our first year of programming, we were running Alcoholics Anonymous on campus because that's what our students needed. Then we started to do some art therapy and music therapy with some of them because that's what they needed. And in the first year, I decided, mainly based on the people who wanted to come, that you don't need to be a Christian to come to our program. You need to be willing to participate in all the class materials, and you have to have this question or this desire to know, is God real or not? Can I actually have a relationship with him? And so we have Baptists and Catholics, and we have Buddhists, and we have animists and atheists and Muslims, and we all come with this question of, is the Bible really true? Is God real? And can I be in a relationship with him? And then as we unpack that over the school year, oh, it's so beautiful to watch how God shows up and what God does. I had a Buddhist kid come in the program. At the beginning, he said, I'm a Buddhist. At Christmas time, he said, oh, I think I'm a Buddhist Christian now. And then at graduation, he said, I think I'm a Christian Buddhist now. He's still a work in progress, but they're like learning and coming alive as they read their Bibles and as God starts to work in their hearts. It's really beautiful.
The gospel is simple, yet it's not simplistic. There is a gospel that deals with the tough stuff of life, and that's what you're encountering day by day. So how does it feel to you to come back to a Western country and see oftentimes, and this is a broad brush stroke, this is not indicative of everyone, but to see a more simplistic gospel being preached?
That's a hard question. It's a challenge. And in the last decade, if we just think about what's taken place in the last decade globally, especially here in North America, but I'm sure like in the Western world, it's fairly similar. There seems to be this change that has happened worldwide in the last decade that is greater than at other times. We had COVID, we had the pandemic, we had the advancement of AI, we have culture wars and ideologies that are dividing. I put my head in the sand in the war zone of Burma for 10 months of the year. And then I come back to North America and I think, what's happening here? I don't get it. It is very difficult for me to fit in North America. And even spiritually, I notice it spiritually. And I often say, you know, the war zone is very dangerous. There's no safe place in Burma anymore with jets and drones and these kind of attacks that are happening. But it's simple. There is a simplicity to living in that space. I know what side I'm on. I know that guy's shooting at me. I know what side he's on. It's very clear. And then I come back to North America and it's not clear at all. Everything seems murky and it's like hard to joke about stuff or talk about things and you're not sure who's going to take offense to different things. And I find the same with our spirituality in Burma. They see death every day. They know every day they wake up, I might die. So I need to figure this out. What's going to happen if I die? And in the West, God is kind of like travel insurance. I'll deposit a little bit into it on Sunday when I go to church, but hopefully I don't need to use my travel insurance and I'm just going to do my plan for my vacation. That's kind of how we operate with our spirituality in the West.
When you do get back to Canada and start to tell some of the stories of what you've experienced, and certainly for people that have read the book or are in the process of reading it, there must be a realization for some of them that, hey, this God that we talk about in sometimes a flippant way is real. He's providing real protection. He's there in the midst of tragedy. He's there in the midst of war. Is there a reality that sinks in for some of those people that you're talking to that this God is for real and I can know him?
Yeah, I have a conversation with somebody and within 5 minutes, I can tell, like I can see their eyes kind of glaze over where they're just like, I don't have a category for what you go through in the life that you live. And others, I can see that they're intrigued and they're interested and they want to know about it. And I have this thought, we either have a religion or we have a living God. I've never wanted a religion. I want a relationship. I'm a relational person. We're all relational people. And God has never been alone. God has always been in relationship. In the Trinity, they've always existed in relationship. And we are created to be in relationship. And so I don't want a religion. I want a relationship with the living God. If I get to that place in my life where I say, okay, there is a God, there is a creator, there is something bigger than me, who am I to not submit to that? If I get to that place and say God is real, and then I just say, meh, that's nice, I'm just going to do my own thing. Whoa, that's such a wild thing to think about. And so for me, it's like, okay, I got to that place in my life where I say, okay, God is a real being. He wants to be in a relationship with me, which is mind-blowing to begin with. But okay, God, I'm your servant. I will serve you in Canada. I will serve you in Burma. I will serve you on the front lines. I will serve you where you call me. I'm your servant. That's the only response I can think that is acceptable.
There's probably people listening who think I could never do what David does. And the good news is, as you've already said, God calls us to different things. So it's probably not what God's calling them to. But for you, being that young man who was a bit more fearful and a bit more worried about what might happen to him, how did that turn around for you? Or has it turned around? Are you still that fearful person, but you know that you serve a big God? Where is that line for you?
The things that I used to be afraid of, I'm not afraid of those things anymore. There are scary moments, definitely every year there are scary moments in the war zone. You're lying in your hammock in the middle of the night and Burma Army drones are buzzing around above you and you can see them and they're dropping bombs. Like, okay, I don't care who you are. It's a scary thing. But things like spiders, snakes, those things don't scare me as much anymore. I've had malaria 3 times. Spiders, they used to make me freeze in fear, and I just kind of brushed them out of the way. And so God has walked me through all of these things. He's initiated me in them. It's been really a beautiful journey to just consent to. And for people who say like, oh, I couldn't do those things, God is a gentle God. He is a good father. If we go to church, we sing that song, okay, good father, and it's easy to sing the song, but reality, he's a good father. He's the father to the prodigal who, when he sees the prodigal coming, he runs to the prodigal and embraces him. And the prodigal's got his speech all ready to go, and I'm so sorry. And the father's not even paying attention. The father is saying, hey, let's celebrate, my son is home. God is going to father us through these things into the kind of person he wants us to become. And he's going to do it gently and with grace and with fatherly love. We can take that first step. And I often tell my students, there's a movie with Matt Damon, a very biblical movie. Matt Damon is called We Bought a Zoo. In it, he talks about 20 seconds of insane courage. And all you need is 20 seconds of courage to do something. Once you take that first step and have courage to do that, then, okay, you're in it. You're already going. And I think that our lives will grow and shrink to the proportion of our courage. I just think we need to start to have 20 seconds of courage and take that step and do the first thing.
So for the person who feels that God is calling them to something that in their mind is scary, and as you say, it might not be the sorts of things that you've done, but it could be a scary step into a different line of work or whatever it might be in their own country or overseas. Is that your advice, to take that courage? How do they actually discern that this is truly what God's calling me to and therefore he will equip me?
I had a mentor, we were talking about risk. The question that was posed to him was, okay, what risks should I take? And I was expecting him to give me some sort of wise answer on, how to calculate the risks and these kind of things. And I was so shocked when he said all of them. And I thought, oh, what? What do you mean? And he said, yeah, what risks should you take? You should take all of them. Take all those risks and put yourself out there. And so I've always kept that in the back of my mind that we get one life. It's a beautiful life that God has given us. And so I say, go for it. Take those risks. Change jobs. If it doesn't work out, okay, change again. If you're going to knock on your neighbor's door and say, hey, I want to bring you these cookies and welcome you to the neighborhood, and he slams the door in your face, okay, No big deal. And one of the things that I learned living in Burma is in the Bible, it says to live is Christ, to die is gain. I can't take all the good things in the Bible and leave that little verse out and say like, yeah, okay, that's a nice verse. But like, it's true. If I want to live, I'm going to live for Jesus. And if I die, it's gain. It's not worse. Okay, it's sad for those people I leave behind, but it's better for me. I get to go and be with Jesus. And so it has to be true. And so go for it. We got one life to live.
Coming back to your book, Nameless Faceless People, why that title?
I was having dinner with friends and I was telling them stories. I had just come back from a mission. I was telling them stories about the mission and they said, you know, what you do is go out and love the nameless, faceless people. That comment just really struck a chord in my heart and stuck with me. And so many of the people that I love in Burma, you'll never see them on the news. You'll never know their names. You'll never hear their stories. And yet they're heroes. They're fighting for God. They're fighting for democracy. They're fighting for freedom in their country. I just thought that was a beautiful name. It stuck with me and I wanted it to be the title because I wanted to tell some of their stories. I want to share some of their experiences with the reader and how they have blessed me and helped initiate me on the journey I've been on.
I will admit that reading through the book is like sitting across the table from you, sitting down, having a coffee and having a conversation. It's written in a very conversational style, very relatable style. But what are you hoping people will take out of the book? For those that you're saying, hey, grab a hold of this book, read through it, what are you hoping they'll take away?
Yeah, I hope it will just encourage people to consider the way that we love others. Going back to these ideas of the political divide right now, ideological divides, church divides, how COVID divided us. There are so many things that divide us these days. We have to come back to this love that unites us. I just think it'll help us to take a look at how do I love people and how can I love people better?
In a world where love can be this wishy-washy, nice feelings kind of thing, you're showing that love can be tough. Love takes sacrifices. Is that the sort of love that you're calling people back to?
Yeah, absolutely. I remember there was a young girl who died. I thought I need to come up with the Bible verse to say or some prayer to say or something to do. And I didn't know. I was just like, what is enough in this situation when a 6-year-old girl dies and her body is there in front of you? The mother is weeping and the sister is weeping. And all that I could do in that moment was show up. I didn't have the right words to say. I didn't have the right scripture. I didn't have anything other than I'm just going to sit here and be with you. And this is a story in the book, but the lesson to me was that love shows up. It can show up in a war zone. It can show up when your friend is struggling. It can show up in celebration and joy. It can show up in surprise and whimsy. It can show up on the opposite side of the world or just going to your neighbor's house. But I just think that as we say, okay, I want to be love and be loving, I'm just going to show up. And I love that Jesus was Emmanuel, God with us, that he showed up in our story. And God is love, the Bible tells us. And so love literally showed up in our story.
And that goes hand in hand with what you were saying about take the risk, take all the risks, because sometimes when we know someone who's going through something difficult, we can tend to retreat and withdraw because we don't know what to do. And what you're saying is take the risk and show up in whatever way we can.
Yeah, exactly. And it doesn't have to be go to Burma and go to a war zone. It literally is almost harder to go to your neighbor who just moved in and knock on the door, or go to your friend who you know is struggling with something and say, hey, I just want to sit here and be a bump on a log while you're struggling and crying and a sloppy mess. That is a hard thing because you're right. We're like, yeah, it's awkward. This is going to be uncomfortable. And he's going to be like crying and snot in his face. And I'm like, I don't want to see you like this, man. So like, but love needs to show up. And that's where we have to risk going and just showing up and being love.
What are your hopes going forward for Jungle Discipleship School?
We have a motto that we are disciples making disciples who are making disciples who are making disciples. And that's my goal and my hope is that our students grasp onto this idea of becoming a disciple of Jesus, and then they go and make other disciples. And so now we have graduates. We've only 2 years into the Jungle Discipleship School, and we already have graduates from our program that are going out to execute ministry plans in hard and dark places in Burma to their own people and building ministries so that they can make more disciples. And we have the gospel is multiplying now from our graduates out to all different corners of Burma. And so I think it's really awesome. I love that God is using the Jungle Discipleship School to do that. And another one of my hopes is that I will have more staff. Right now, it's only me there running everything. And so I do need staff. So if anyone's listening and wants to come, please come.
David, you've lived an incredible life so far, and yet we can see that that's fueled by what God wants to do. And for all of us, we're all imperfect people just following what God has for us. There are links in the show notes at bleedingdaylight.net so that people can connect with you, find your book, and be part of what you're doing there. So I just want to say thank you for what you're doing. We've only really scratched the surface, and that's why it's good to get hold of that book and read through and learn a little bit more. But thank you for what you're doing, and thank you for spending time with us today on Bleeding Daylight.
Rodney, it was such an honor. Thank you so much for the conversation. I loved it.
Thank you for listening to Bleeding Daylight. Please help us to shine more light into the darkness by sharing this episode with others. For further details and more episodes, please visit bleedingdaylight.net.